one of you just start talking about something about your early childhood that you remember, a happy memory, a frightening memory,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. You're on the spot.
It's difficult for me to remember anything, like from 1 to 6 years. But then we had a duty: go to school, do the breakfast dishes if had time, and carry in the wood for the wood stove and pile it gently in the wood box. That's when, 6 and 7. And 8, the life was similar to that all the time. School, 9 o'clock till 12. Lunch, 12 to 1. Back again to school till 4.
How about memories about your parents? About your parents when you were younger?
What?
What do you remember about your parents?
Well, my father worked on the railroad, and he would put in an 8-hour day, and then after supper he'd do a couple more hours chores in the barn, and that pretty well filled up his time. I remember there were more chores to do, milking the cows and putting the milk through the cream separator, and
Could I interrupt? We didn't have a cream separator when we were 6 and 7, and we got a little older. Then they presented us with a cream separator.
that's right. Before the cream separator, the milk was put in a creamery can, and that was put in the cold water, a brook or a spring, and through the hours the cream would rise to the top, and you'd run off the milk and save the cream for making butter. There was always something to do, and I remember bringing in a couple of eggs from the hen house, and I met a friendly ram, and I had my eggs in my pocket. The ram butted me and smashed the eggs. There was a couple of days afterwards in school that I went to put my hand in my pocket, and the pocket was glued shut. So much for bringing in eggs. You didn't do anything smart like that, did you, Betty? Or
No.
Betty, Josephine?
No.
No.
So what were other memories?
Oh, yeah. How often did we get eggs in a year? Did you get the complete year round?
No, the hens would lay eggs for a certain season, and then when a hen laid a small egg, that meant business over for the time being. But a small egg was quite a novelty around home. You couldn't eat it, but you could look at it.
What kind of things did you do with your parents?
Do with what?
With your parents?
Mostly go to church. You'd go to church on Sundays with your parents, but My father worked 6 days of the week, 8 hours, and Sunday was his only day off. And Mother had plenty of chores to do herself, so, oh dear, what did we do together? Well, we read the Bible Sunday nights, and the other nights, why, it was mostly, if you had a bit of homework to do it, and off to bed.
And do you recall Saturday evening, Father always greased the wheels on the buggy? We couldn't grease the wheels on the buggy on Sunday. Also, we had to polish our shoes and sit them by the door. We wasn't to clean our shoes on Sunday.
That's right. 6 days you were to get your work done and rest the 7th day.
And we couldn't read our literature, Eton catalog.
Nor the Family Herald. Good gracious.
And we couldn't read it on Sunday. And also, our weekly paper generally came in Wednesday from Toronto, the Family Herald and the Weekly Star, and we weren't to read that.
Then when Sunday came and the people would be driving past not in cars, but with their fishing rods, and on the way to fish or enjoy themselves one way or another. But as Josephine says, we couldn't even read the Family Herald or
Eton catalog.
Right. Okay, we were frightfully abused. We were.
May I add this? We bought through the Eton catalog mail to Toronto, and Toronto would mail the goods back. And one day, Harold stepped up to his mother when she was making up an order. "I'd like this." Mama said, "Yes. Yes, I'll give that a thought." And then she approached him, I don't know if it's that same day, but it must have been, "Harold, that was a good idea, but I'll have to cancel something that we really need for the family. I can't get both the family requirements and that toy."
Was that the time that I got the jackknife?
I don't know.
There was one time the order to Eaton's had been made up, and I wanted a jackknife, so Mother crossed off some item and put an order for a jackknife for me, which came.
Oh, that was
And I went
time.
to school with it, and when I came home at noon, I didn't have the knife. That was the last we saw of it. These are terrible stories we're telling. Wasn't there any happiness in our life, dear?
We got 3 meals a day, good healthy meals, and if we didn't eat them up, clean our plate off, we had to save that for the next meal.
That reminds me of barley soup. Barley soup. Well, I just looked at it and I didn't think I liked it. But I ate the barley soup. My mother didn't feed me any more barley soup after that, but I ate that barley soup. Personally, right now, I don't mind barley soup.
Enjoy it. And then, after our little chores, daily chores, school, homework, we had to go to bed. 8 o'clock sharp. And if we stopped to say good night, once, twice, there would be a strong voice from the kitchen couch. Upstairs, get to bed.
And Uncle John happened to be there once. He says, "What's going on? Are these people going to the war? What's all the good night stuff about?" And, I forgot one now, let's see. There was Murray's story. My brother Murray. Murray and I were in the same bed, and we weren't ready for going to sleep. So we would take the bedclothes off of the bed, put the quilts on first and the blankets up on top, and then lie on the blankets and fold the sides in over us. And we were busy doing this, and Father couldn't stand it anymore. He came in the room and he gave Murray a couple of slaps. Then he looked round for me. This is in the dark, no lights. He looked round for me and he got Murray again, gave him another slapping. And then he was leaving the room. I burst out laughing. And he came back in, gave Murray a third slap. Murray and I never forgot that story. Murray's not here now. Right. Yeah.
I could have laughed.
Did they get the one of the that the boys had to carry in wood, you know, and put in, fill the wood box every afternoon? The wood was always chopped and stacked in the woodshed just to keep it dry and ready for.
So do you remember any things like going out canoeing or cycling, like being on a bicycle? Remember being on a bicycle?
Oh, yes.
Or doing things like that?
Yes. A couple of boys landed up from Millerton, 6 miles from Upper Derby. And they had bicycles. Well, right away, I'd want a bicycle. And Father had an old bicycle stored away. The tires were flat, and it didn't matter to me, as long as it had tires on it, why I would try to ride it.
And no brake on the wheel.
No brake. The pedals went round whenever the wheels went round. And I got, with the help of David Jardine, to ride this bicycle with flat tires. I went out one day with another young man, not a young man, a young boy, and he says, "Oh, those those tires can be pumped up." And he had a pump, and we pumped up the tires. Well, I couldn't believe it. I get on the bicycle and it almost ran away with me. But the air didn't stay in the tires very long. The next time you wanted to go out, the tires were flat. And eventually, Father changed those tires and put on tires with inner tubes. And I even got so good that I could attempt to go to church on a bicycle.
How many miles?
Oh yes, 2 miles. So I'm pretty well to church, and there's people going to church, and they're streamed across the road. Well, the chap I was with, he got round them all right, but I got up to them and fell amongst them. But that was all.
Grandma, do you remember a trip on a bike that you had? I remember you telling me a story about being on a bike and going down a hill.
Yeah, well, you see, my bike was like, well, we were only young at this time. Oh, may I say 14? Were we 14? No, we were at school. 9 and 10. And I was given Aunt Lexi's bike. Same tires down and no brakes. And I finally had the bike put into condition. I'm getting older now. I must be somewhere around 17, 18. And I'm going down a heavy hill towards the river. Leave the main highway and going down the hill to the Miramichi River. And lo and behold, no brakes. As I go down the hill, the speed is increasing, and I see the Miramichi River in front of me, and I have to get off that bike, so I have to throw myself off. And I land in a pile of rock, bruised body all over. But nevertheless, picked the bike up, what was left, and loaded it onto a canoe, punt, and started to row across the river. And I got across, there was a current, but I was getting stronger and stronger, and I pulled over. Oh yeah, the current was so bad, sorry, that I didn't have strength to land at the original spot, and I was going down, and I thought, what'll I do? And I noticed a big boom of logs anchored on the shore, and I started to go towards that large boom, and a voice from heaven called out to me, Tommy Curtis, "Don't get out of your boat." So I got to the boom and was holding on to some log, and Tommy ran out, drew my boat to the shore, and said, "Away you go."
Was that a boom of logs or ice?
Boom of logs.
Boom of logs.
Yeah, and it was parked on the...
You must have been punished. For me, I was out with Davy Jardine, the lad that steadied me while I learned to run the bicycle, and he had tobacco, and he was chewing tobacco. Well, what about it, Harold? Will you try tobacco? Oh, sure, yes. So he gave me a little bit of tobacco. I put it in my mouth, and going along on the bicycle, I ran over a stone and I swallowed my tobacco, and kept on home. I was sick. "Well, you're driving that bicycle too much. You're not to drive it for another week." So I was grounded for a week, and I didn't dare tell them that I was learning to chew tobacco. Right.
Well, then what about your father? Did he smoke?
Did Father smoke?
Father smoked a pipe. And when he put the pipe down, for recess, his son Harold would be able to reach up to the table and get that pipe. Father saw that, and he said, "My son is not to smoke." And that was the end of Father's smoking.
So the years went by, and Father set me a good example. No smoking. I finally, I think it was when I went to university that I had time to smoke a bit. Seemed to be the thing to do. I could only smoke so much, and then I had to put the pipe away, and it was an awful job learning to smoke. And then when I did learn, I smoked for years. The smoking stopped after I was retired, and I couldn't make up my mind at the store what kind of tobacco I wanted to smoke. So I bought a pound of ham and went home. I haven't smoked since. People that have trouble quitting smoking, it didn't bother me to quit. I guess I smoked the wrong way. So much for examples.
Do you have any stories about Alexina that you want to talk about?
About what?
Alexina? Do you have any stories about Alexina?
Oh, Alexina.
You want to share?
Alexina. She was the young sister. She was 8 years younger than me. And she'd be 10 years younger than Josephine. But that's all about I can...
She was our
Alexina?
doll. Alexina was, she just grew up like we did, but not so many duties, because the older ones were doing the duties around the house. Oh, tell him about your weeding the garden. You know, he's a real gardener now, but tell about the weeding of the garden.
Reading what?
Weeding the potato field. When Father would go out to work in the morning, he'd call over his shoulder, "Don't forget the weeds in the potato field."
Yes, and I would feel guilty about it all day, and I might rush out about 20 minutes before he came home at night and be busy at it when he came back. But I never did anything worthwhile. Once, I think Mother and Father came west to visit in Vancouver. It's summer holidays. And on a Sunday, we happened to walk through the potato field, and there was all kinds of soft potato bugs eating away at the potatoes. Well, you couldn't do anything on Sunday, but on Monday, I got out the Paris green and water and went through the different rows of potatoes, and whatever I did, the potatoes were as good that year as ever. And turnips was another thing. And one day my younger brother, Murray, showed up with 3 of the neighbors' kids. Their people were away, but they knew where there was some dynamite. So they came back and they brought caps, fuse, and a couple of sticks of dynamite. Well, we started with caps, and we'd put a cap under a turnip and a length of fuse, set fire to it. When the cap went off, I had tipped the turnips over. Well, that wasn't enough. We had a stump in a field with a hollow center. So we finally put a fuse in the stick of dynamite, put a cap on it, set fire to it. Oh yes, put the cap on in the dynamite, and then set fire to the fuse. And then we ducked behind a fence a short distance away. Well, the dynamite blew, and the stone we had put over the hole, it blew it up in the air. When I think of the different young people that have blown their fingers off and blown their eyes out, I don't know how we got away with that one.
And that was just to blow up the
Beg pardon?
turnip? That was to blow up the turnip fields?
It didn't. No, it didn't. No, it just blew the stone off of the top and split the stump a little more, but the stump was still there, right? Yeah.
Could I just, are we finished? Could I just, one more. We were very careful, no, Father and Mother was very careful, our company, what company we kept. And Dave Jardine came along and he stood at our gate. And you happened to be in back of the gate, oh dear knows what you were playing with, and stepped up and was talking to Dave. And what is Father doing in the kitchen? Looking out the window. Why don't that child come home? He is home, but why don't he come in? I was invited by the classmates, I'm now somewhere around 16, to go to a party up Elm Tree Hill. And there was a shack there. Workers were living there for a while and they left. And so some members of our community decided we'd have a dance. What music or where we would get the lights and so on. And I asked Mother if I may go. No. Well, everybody else is going, but not me. No. One more. Halloween. At home. Tell about what we do there.
How was that?
At home, Halloween.
Oh yes, Halloween. There'd be a tub of water, apples floating in it. And if you managed to
Just the family.
open your mouth and pick an apple out of the floating apple, why, you could eat it. That wasn't much of a game.
What was for us.
Then the people from the neighborhood, kids, would rig up a noisemaker, and they'd have that up against the window, a spool with the edges notched, and a string around it. It made a great racket, but it was very annoying for anyone that was inside the house. I don't remember.
Did you ever go out? I didn't know.
No, I did not go out.
Well, that's all with our parents.
How about Christmas?
Oh,
Was
yeah.
Christmas a big celebration for you?
Christmas, we got one toy each. And
From Santa Claus.
Beg pardon?
From Santa Claus.
All right.
Not from our parents.
We were a bit better off than the other kids in the neighborhood. They would get apples, oranges, and candy. Not too much, but a smidgen of each. But we would get one toy each, and then there was always a story about someone that instead of getting a present, he got a willow switch in his sock. And I get downstairs checking my sock on Christmas Day, and I couldn't find the sock, so I thought I'm one of those that had a switch coming to him. But when the light of day came, I had got a new sled, and the sled had hidden the sock. We were telling an awful lot of stories. You think our childhood was...
No, we're only giving them our childhood, our
Yeah.
life. It was rich, and we had lots of fun.
We had lots to eat, and we had plenty of clothes, and our parents were always there. It wasn't as bad as what it sounds. I think we've given you the worst of it. Oh yes, another one about Murray. Murray was the one with the money.